Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 201, September the 23rd, 2017, the Saturday evening edition. Boy oh boy, have we got a lot of news breaking today. So let's get right to it. Well, it looks like McCain is going to be a no vote on this third attempt at Obamacare repeal, which is really not Obamacare repeal, but it's the third attempt at doing something to stop the calamity and the disaster, which is Obamacare, which, as we know, 2018 is the out year. That's when all the really bad stuff is going to hit, and all these Congress critters know it. They're in a very difficult situation. That's why they're trying to get something, anything, passed through the Senate. But it looks like McCain hates Trump more than he loves Lindsey Graham, because Lindsey Graham is the primary sponsor of this bill. It's essentially his bill. Basically, he says it's federalism and it gives control back to the states. But his buddy, John McCain, is going to be a no vote. My. What do we have going on here? Does this mean that the long, deep, intimate relationship between Senator Magoo and Lindsey Candy Pants Graham has now come to an end? What can we conclude from this? Does this mean that there'll be no more late night sessions with Candy Pants Graham bringing Senator Magoo his warm milk and giving him a belly rub? Who now will take on that role for Senator Magoo? Something tells me it won't be Rand Paul. Well, I don't know how many of you got to see Trump's speech the other night down in Huntsville. He actually appeared at a rally for Luther Strange. And so we were talking a little bit earlier last week. I believe it was Patty that was wanting me to look into that and try to find out what's going on and why Trump is so supporting Luther Strange, while most of the actual, people who are part of the Make America Great agenda, including all the people around him, Bannon and all those, they're all supporting Roy Moore, mainly because he's a real hardcore religious conservative and that type of thing. And we found out last night exactly why Trump is supporting Luther Strange. And you really have to watch the video for yourself, but just to give you a quick, response to that question, essentially Trump laid out the story. He said that he was given a list of 10 no votes on the Obamacare repeal health bill, and he was given a list of names of 10 people, and he was going to have to call them and try to get them to change their vote. And he said, as he went down the list and he's calling all these guys, they're all basically saying, yeah, well, they all wanted something in return to even talk about it, and what they all wanted was access to the White House. They wanted to be able to have their families come to the White House and have dinner with Trump. They wanted pictures. They wanted all sorts of stuff, and then they would talk about it. But Trump said when he got to Luther Strange and he called him and he said, yeah, I know it's a problem, but I need your vote on repeal on Obamacare. Strange just said, you got it. Right off the bat, you got it. Anything that you need. I'm 100% on board. I've been supporting you all along. 100%. You've got my vote. Trump was shocked. He couldn't believe it, because that's not what he had been hearing from the other people, and he was told that Strange was a no vote. So Trump says to him, yeah, I was told you were a no vote. I mean, why, I don't understand it. What is it you want? What do you want? And Luther Strange said, I don't want nothing. And Trump's like, no dinner, no pictures, no photos at the White House? He's like, no, I don't want anything. You've got my vote, Mr. President, 100%. And I'm 100% on board with the Make America Great Again agenda. 100%. And he says that is why he supports Luther Strange. And he goes in to elaborate more on that, but you can watch the video for yourself. So now we understand why Trump supports Luther Strange. Because remember, he is currently the acting senator from Alabama, replacing Jeff Sessions until the special election. Once the special election's over, whoever wins, then they'll be in the Senate. But so far, every vote that he's cast and everything he's stated, he is 100% on board with the Trump Make America Great Again agenda. And that's why Trump supports him. Plain and simple. So, anyway, in the speech last night, Donald Trump said he did a couple things that was just incredible. probably the thing getting the most play today is that he went off on this issue that's going on with the NFL, the National Football League, where we're seeing all these players protesting. And Trump actually said at one point, he said, there's going to be a point where some owner is going to see this disrespect of the flag, and he's going to just say, hey, get that son of a bitch off the field. He's fired. And he said son of a bitch. He didn't say SOB. He said son of a bitch. Get that son of a bitch off the field. He's fired. And the crowd went crazy. Another thing he did, he went in, he talked about the rotten reverend, and he used the phrase again, crooked Hillary, which at that point, when he used the phrase crooked Hillary, the crowd began the chant, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. Trump stepped aside for a minute and let them do their lock her up. Then he stepped back up to the mic and he said, talk to Jeff Sessions. And then he made a couple really funny faces, So that was really, I thought, very noteworthy. He also, of course, ripped Senator Magoo over killing health care bill once before, and now he's prepared to do it again. Again, this just shows you that McCain hates Trump more than he loves Lindsey Candy Pants Graham, his butt buddy, and certainly more than he loves you. He also was talking at one point about the elections coming up in 2018, and he talked about the Republican Party. When he brought up the word and said the word Republican Party, the entire audience immediately went into a major boo. Now, this also plays into another thing that we're seeing right now, is you're seeing some videos and you're seeing a lot of talk showing these sports stadiums, particularly in the West Coast in California. You're seeing on the Rams games and the San Francisco 49er games, they're panning the stadium, and you're seeing that the stadiums are literally two-thirds empty. Two-thirds empty. This disrespecting the flag and disrespecting the anthem and stuff like that is really starting to hit the NFL hard. The ratings are down 30%. People are just fed up with it. NFL fans are not going along with this at all, and it's really hurting the bottom line. Now the players are putting pressure on the owners. They want the NFL to make November or October, I think, the month of the NFL's protest against cops, basically. So it's getting pretty hairy out there now for the NFL. And in fact, in his speech, Trump actually said that what needs to happen is the next time that people are in the stadium watching someone disrespect the flag, a player, that they all need to get up and walk out of the stadium. So I can assure you that that message got out, and I expected that that was going to start happening anyway, but now you can actually count on it happening. You are going to see people literally, when a player goes out and takes a knee or disrespects the flag or the anthem, you are going to see people filing for the exits. This is very, very, very bad news for the NFL. They have a big problem. They've let it get out of hand. They're on the wrong side of this issue, and I think it's going to come out and bite them in the ass in a big way. And I'm an NFL fan, and I can tell you that I have not had the same enthusiasm as I've had in previous years. Now, part of that has to do with the fact that our team's really bad this year. We got a lot of problems, which shouldn't surprise anybody. We're the Bengals, right? But it's really taking hold. Even I don't have the same enthusiasm, and I don't want to see this stuff either. As an NFL fan, the last thing you want to do is turn on the damn game and see this type of stuff. It ruins the whole football game. And people start talking about that becomes the issue. The football game becomes secondary. It's becoming nothing more than a stage for these anti-American types, to use the NFL and to use that stage to get out their personal political whims. And no one wants to hear that. If these guys want to go out and give speeches or donate to causes, what they want to do on their own time, that's fine. But, when you're a performer or an entertainer or an athlete or something like that, your job and what people are paying to see you do, that's what you do. Go out and sing, go out and dance, go out and play the game, do whatever it is you do. And the other stuff that you do, the extracurricular, you do on your own time, on your own platform. And this is really where that issue should be. But you can see what's going on with the NFL, and this thing is only going to get worse and worse as the season goes on. And it will ultimately end up costing the NFL and the owners a lot of money. And those who have bought into this are going to find themselves in serious trouble because they're really ruining what was once America's greatest game. The NFL is the most popular sport in America. Was. It's funny, you don't really see it in Major League Baseball. But it's football seems to be where it's the main stage is at today. So we'll keep watching, and that's what we have. The speech, by the way, not what I would say is one of his best speeches, because he was really there as a campaign speech to campaign for Luther Strange. But it's worth watching his speech in Alabama last night. Next, Jeff the Flake, down 26 points now to Kelly Ward, but he says the poll's not relevant. Well, he may know something we don't know. Certainly the establishment, they are arrogant. They think that with big money and pressure that they can, in splitting the race and dividing the race with other people, which is exactly what they're working on and doing there, is going to be successful for them, because it usually is in the past. But I'm telling you that we are living in different times. All the signs are out there that there's something bubbling under the surface. And like I've told you before, I think people are desperate to get out and cast a vote and show their disapproval for the anti-Trumpers. They don't have anywhere to go vote today, so they're using other ways to protest. And again, what we're seeing with people protesting the games in the NFL, protesting Hollywood, protesting movies, they're staying away. This is the only the only way that they can exercise their feelings right now. But in November of 2018, they'll have another way, and that will be at the ballot box. Jeff the Flake, I think that you're going to find out that it is very relevant. The dishonorable James Comey, who should be in prison and hopefully will be, was speaking at the commencement speech at Howard University. Well, he got a very unwelcome greeting from the folks there at Howard University. As he was trying to give his speech, the crowd began breaking out into chants, including one was, "Get out, James Comey, you ain't my homie." Get out, James Comey, you ain't my homie. Yeah, and you should have seen him. When he first came out and started to speak and they started their protesting and stuff, he just stood there. He really didn't say anything. He just stood there and let him go and let him go and let him go, and really didn't say anything for quite a while. And it really destroyed his his attempt at giving a commencement speech. It was a total disaster. So we can see, and we'll get more into this here in a minute, about how this stuff is ramping up even more and more and more. And now the very elitist, the very criminals that help propagate this are now finding themselves as the target of the very people who they empowered. Now it's all coming home and biting them in the butt, just as I told you it would months ago. Right again. And it's, it's just like Pelosi and what happened to her last week and others. And, of course, we've already had one Democratic congressman change party affiliation. There's a possibility that Joe Manchin may be the next Democrat to become a Republican or an independent. We now have 4 or 5 Republicans that have chosen not to run for re-election. Believe me, these guys have poll research. They have research that tells them what's going on. They know what is going on. And again, this reminds me of the old Frankenstein, 1931 Frankenstein movie, the story. What is the story of Frankenstein? Well, Dr. Frankenstein creates this monster. And this monster then turns on him. And even when he tries to stomp the monster, he cannot do it. The monster then goes out into the community and begins murdering and terrorizing people in the community, until finally the people in the community join together to take down the monster. They finally trap him in an old barn, at which point they start the barn on fire, and just before the monster is burned up to his death, he tosses, who he has in his arms, Dr. Frankenstein, to the angry crowd, just before he is burned to death. This is what's happening. It's the Frankenstein effect. I told you months ago that the liberal media was doing no favor to the Democratic Party by propagating, by empowering the extreme progressive left. that they weren't doing themselves or the Democratic Party any favor, because at the very same time that they're helping to radicalize and promote the radical leftists, who at that time were just focusing mainly on Trump and supposedly right-wingers, they have now turned on the Democratic Party. They've turned on the Democrats. The very monster they created has turned on them. Just as I told you, this is happening. And it's not just happening with Pelosi or even with Comey or anything else. It's happening to a lot of Democrats. Even Elizabeth Warren was recently, on 2 different occasions, found herself in this precarious situation with her own leftist radical progressives who have now turned on her and the rest of her party. Even those who are perceived to be progressives, they're turning on them. This is not going to end well for the Democrats. They have no solution for this problem. It's killing their fundraising. And the problem that they have is, again, as I told you before, you've got the left-wing media empowering these progressive left-wing groups. At the same time, the corporate Democratic donors, the people who own the party, the people who pay for it, the big money people, they are telling the corporate Democrats and rank-and-file Democrats that if they want to keep receiving that money, they need to move to the center. So they're getting tremendous pressure. These Democrats getting tremendous pressure by the people who bankroll them. Their mother's milk is pushing them toward the center, while this is causing the progressives and the far left-wing radicals to push back against them from the other direction. They are caught in the middle of a shit sandwich, and I'm sure it's not very tasty for Pelosi, the dishonorable Comey, Mr. Manchin, Pocahontas, and all the rest. They've sown their own seeds of destruction, and I'm going to enjoy watching it unravel. And we'll see how it goes in 2018 and 2020, but I can tell you it's not going to go well. And if they lose 2 more major election cycles and they don't get a handle on this, and I don't know how they can at this point, it's out of control. It's a monster that's out of control. And like Frankenstein, in the end, the entire damn thing gets burnt to the ground. And I'm telling you, we could be looking at the early stages of the eradication of the Democratic Party as we know it. It may have to be completely destroyed, and I believe it's going in that direction, and it will have to be remade with a new Democratic Party. This is what I see in my little crystal ball. How about you? GOP consultant and Trump supporter, alleged Trump supporter, Ed Rollins tells Lou Dobbs that the chief of staff, John Kelly, did not even vote for Trump, and he voted for Hillary. Of course, I told you that. First of all, Mr. Rollins, to describe him as a Trump supporter, I'm sorry about that, but I remember watching Mr. Rollins during the early stages of the election in 2016, before Trump won the nomination. He certainly wasn't supporting Trump. Now, maybe after the election he was, but there was rumors that he had been, and Mr. Rollins became famous back in the early 80s when he was given credit for helping Ronald Reagan win his first election. And that's kind of when he became a major player and thought to be a real supporter of populist Reagan-type Republicans. But I remember very well in the early stages of the campaign, he was not a Trump supporter. No. No. Now, maybe after Trump was nominated, won the nomination, maybe he came over to Trump's team. But certainly at the prior to the end of the primaries, Ed Rollins was not a Trump supporter. I remember quite well. I wasn't doing videos at that time, but I definitely remember seeing him on some talk shows and stuff like that, and he wasn't really a Trump supporter. But I agree with him that, and it doesn't surprise me, and I've stated the same, as well as McMaster. I can absolutely guarantee you, including Sean Spicer, and a lot of these people who Trump has brought in around him, and he seems to like John Kelly. He introduced him last night and said what a great guy he is. But no, it doesn't surprise me that John Kelly or McMaster or any of these guys voted for Hillary. I've stated the same previously. It's obvious. Forensic psychologist Armando Simon, well, world-renowned now retired forensic psychologist Armando Simon has given his clinical diagnosis of the Rotten Reverend. And he says his clinical diagnosis of the Rotten Reverend is that she is a sociopath. She is a pathological liar, lies compulsively when there is no need to lie. Remember the lie about Sir Edmund Hillary? She said she was named after the great mountain climber Sir Edmund Hillary, even though she wasn't even born at the time when she was born prior to Sir Edmund Hillary achieving his great quest of climbing that mountain. Could not have been true. It was a lie. And all the other lies that we know. Landing in Serbia under sniper fire, and on and on and on and on. One lie after another. He also says that she never accepts responsibility for her failures, instead blames someone else. Lacks a sense of moral responsibility or social conscience. These are all the traits of a sociopath. Lack of remorse and shame, insincerity, an egocentric, superficial charm, lack of empathy, cold, calculating nature. And yes, her blue eyes are not blue, they're fake. She wears blue contact lenses. Her eyes are actually like a greenish brown. Shit-filled. She is a narcissist, and she has a grandiose self-image. All the traits of a sociopath. So, I want to ask all of you, my viewers and subscribers, do you believe that the Rotten Reverend meets the clinical diagnosis definition, the clinical definition of a sociopath? Please reply in the comment section below. The Dossier. Well, we know a lot about the Dossier. As you know, I did a major story on the Dossier. I've been following the Dossier very closely, as many of you have as well. Watching that Dossier, there are a lot of things we know, and then there are a lot of allegations that we suspect are true, but have not been actually confirmed. Right now, we have a total standoff between the Justice Department and the FBI versus the House Oversight Committee, headed by the Pitbull, Trey Gowdy, and also on the Senate side, the Judiciary Committee with Charles Grassley and Diane Turn In Your Guns, Mrs. America Feinstein. They are loggerheads, have now sent subpoenas 3 times. They are now at their final, on the last straw for these members of Congress, trying to get the information they've requested and the witnesses to finally nail down the facts of the Dossier. And so we're now down to where the rubber really meets the road and the things that we really need to know to finally really understand the Dossier. Senator Magoo has a big role in that, and I imagine some of that's going to be unearthed in the weeks to come. So here are a couple of things to me that, and I know that these are questions that are that they want to probe in both of these committees. These are the very important allegations that have been made that need to be confirmed. To me, these are the top 2. 2 things that we really need to understand. Number 1, what was the probable cause that was used to obtain the FISA warrant on Manafort? Was it the Dossier? It's very important. And it sure looks like it, because that's what just about every media outlet is reporting. They are reporting that it was the Dossier, and I think they're talking about the second FISA warrant request. Assuming it was a FISA warrant, it could have been a general criminal warrant, like the one that was used to search his home a couple of weeks ago at 3 o'clock in the morning via SWAT raid. That is a question. That is, the allegation is there. Just about everyone is reporting that it was, in fact, the Dossier that was used by Comey and his friends to get the warrant. This is very, very important. Very, very important. And this is the question it doesn't appear that the FBI and the Justice Department want to answer. Did the FBI pay Christopher Steele or essentially did they pay for the dossier? This is the other question that they really do not want to answer, and why they're fighting these subpoenas. They do not want to produce the evidence. They do not want to talk about whether or not the FBI paid Mr. Steele or paid any money to have that dossier produced. These two questions are the two questions that will tell us a great deal. And these are the two questions that the committees are trying to drill down on, and they are being fought very hard by the Justice Department and the FBI. So, if we learn that what's being alleged is true, then what that will tell us is that the FBI participated in the creation of the dossier, possibly even the dissemination of the dossier, and then used that dossier to go to the FISA court to obtain the warrant to get the authorization for the surveillance. You understand what I just said? If we learn that the answer to these two previous questions is the affirmative, that will basically mean that the FBI participated in creating the evidence used to get the FISA warrant. Then they went and took that evidence to the FISA court and said, hey, here's the evidence we've discovered we want a FISA warrant. The FBI cannot create its own evidence in order to get a FISA warrant. That would be beyond highly irregular, I'm sure, quite criminal, and unbelievable, quite honestly. If this is proven, and we're going to get to the bottom of this, and I do believe that the dishonorable Mr. Comey will be called back to Congress to testify as they try to get to the bottom of these two issues. Now let's keep in mind something else in regards to the surveillance. Keep in mind, Manafort talked to Trump up to a dozen times a day, as did Kushner and all the other people. Carter, I don't think Carter had much direct, in fact, any real contact with Trump, but certainly Manafort and Jared Kushner had many contacts daily with Trump. This tells you that the target of the surveillance was Trump, but they couldn't get surveillance on Trump, so they did the next best thing. Round-the-clock surveillance on two people that they know for a fact were having daily conversation with Trump. So do you see what they're doing here? Their target was Trump. They couldn't get Trump, so they targeted people around him that they knew would be speaking to Trump every day. And so that begs the next question. And the unmasking that was done by Samantha Power and Susan Rice and possibly Ben Rhodes and God knows who else, all this unmasking, the next question that needs to be answered is, in the context or in the course of this unmasking, was there ever any conversations where Trump was picked up in these conversations that was unmasked? Was Trump unmasked in any of these conversations? James Clapper, James Nothing But Crap Clapper, the unwitting fool, said in an interview to Brian Ross on January the 20th, excuse me, on January the 20th of 2017, that there was no wiretap of Trump Tower, not at all, by any part of the national intelligence community. Can you spot the lie? Can you spot the lie? Let me read that quote one more time from James Clapper. There was no wiretap of Trump Tower, none at all, by any part of the national intelligence community. There's the lie. Remember what we just learned 2 days ago, that they sought FISA warrants on 2 occasions. Both were rejected. So the next move that they did, according to these high-level FBI officials speaking to the investigative unit of True Pundit, is they went to GCHQ. So when he says None at all by any part of the national intelligence community. No, no, no. What he's saying is that no, we didn't do it. GCHQ did. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Finally, Imran Awan, Luke Rosiak, the latest on this, and this is something I imagine all you guys have heard. Luke Rosiak has now obtained Virginia police records detailing the harrowing experiences of abuse suffered at the hands of Awan by at least, it appears 13, but he cites 3 separate cases, women. It appears that these were Muslim women. Apparently, one woman said that after her date with Imran Awan, she was bloodied, and that's how the police found her, bloodied. Another woman says that she felt like she was a slave. Another woman claimed it to have been kept in captivity. Wow. Now let's go back to Debbie Wasserman, Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz. This is a guy who she has been around for 13, 14 years. This is a guy who she's protected at every possible opportunity and covered for him at every possible opportunity. And I can't help, I don't want to go tabloid on you guys here, but something in my mind just tells me that there's something more going on. This is not the type of, you do not stick your neck out like Schultz has done for someone who's just simply a business associate of yours, some low-level IT guy, considering who she is. There's got to be something more. And obviously, we all suspect blackmail, espionage. But is it possible, and I know this is kind of crazy, but is it possible that there may have been a little something more going on between Imran Awan and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the blabbermouth? Because if so, and we now learn that Imran Awan seems to be into some pretty kinky S&M type stuff, if this is the case, then is it possible that maybe the relationship between Imran Awan and Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz was of another type of a nature that most of us don't even want to try and think about or imagine? Because it's pretty gross, to be honest with you. Do you think, is it possible that Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz is a freak? Is it possible that Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz is into some really kinky stuff along with her slave master, Imran Awan, who clearly is into some very kinky S&M stuff himself? This story is getting stranger by the day. And I can't help but think about something here. We have Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz, close associate and bagwoman for the Clintons, formerly Hillary's campaign manager, formerly head of the DNC, that helped cheat Bernie Sanders in favor of the Rotten Reverend. Then we have Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton's personal number one, I guess, confidant, and possibly her pet. We have the Rotten Reverend, and we have Huma's husband being now a convicted pervert. No question about that. And really into some kinky stuff with people who are dangerously close to being children. In fact, the 15-year-old girl that he's facing charges for having activities with is technically considered a minor and a child. So there we have Wiener, probably a big fan of pizza, and Comet Pong Pizza, or whatever that place is called. And then you also have, let's see, who else we got here? We have Debbie Wasserman Schultz, we have Huma Abedin, and we also have the Rotten Reverend herself, whose husband is also known to be a pervert, possibly a pedophile. Certainly likes those very, very young women, doesn't he? Interns and things and such. Look at what these three people have in common. Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz, the Rotten Reverend, and Huma. They are all associated or married to some kind of a pervert. What kind of a freak show is going on? What in the hell is going on in the swamp? My God. My God. And by the way, one final comment to Fern Sencheisen. Yes, I have looked at the second video, and I will comment on that tomorrow. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm out of time. See you tomorrow. Bye.